Either or by Soren Kierkegaard. Balance between aesthetic and ethical. Anyone who refuses to struggle with actualities acquires phantoms to struggle against. When a person considers himself aesthetically, his soul is like soil out of which grow all sorts of herbs, all with equal claim to flourish. His self consists of this multiplicity, and he has no self that is higher than this. The person who lives ethically does not exterminate the mood. He looks at it for a moment, but this moment saves him from living in the instant. This moment gives him supremacy over the desire, for the art of mastering desire is not so much as in exterminating it or utterly renouncing it, as in determining the moment. It is curious that the word duty can prompt one to think of an external relation, since the very derivation of the word suggests an internal one. For that which is incumbent upon me, not as an individual with accidental characteristics, but in accordance with my true being, certainly has the most intimate relation with myself. That is, duty is not something laid upon one, but something that lies upon. When duty is regarded in this way, it is a sign that the individual is oriented within himself. Then duty will not split up for him into a multiplicity of particular stipulations, for this always indicates that he has only an external relation to duty. He has put on duty. For him it is the expression of his innermost being. When he is thus oriented within himself, he has immersed himself in the ethical, and will not run around performing duties. Therefore, the truly ethical person has an inner serenity and sense of security, for he does not have duty outside himself, but within himself. The more deeply a man has structured his life ethically, the less he will feel compelled to talk about duty every moment, to worry every moment whether he is performing it, every moment to seek the advice of others about what duty is. When the ethical is viewed properly, it makes the individual infinitely secure within himself. When it is viewed improperly, it makes the individual utterly insecure. And I cannot imagine an unhappier or more tormented life than when a person has his duty outside himself and yet continually wants to carry it out. The self the individual knows is simultaneously the actual self and the ideal self, which the individual has outside himself as the image in whose likeness he is to form himself, and which, on the other hand, he has within himself, since it is he himself. Only within himself does the individual have the objective toward which he is to strive, and yet he has this objective outside himself as he strives toward it. That is, if the individual believes that the universal human being lies outside him, so that it will come to him from the outside, then he is disoriented. Then he has an abstract conception, and his method will always be an abstract annihilating of the original self. Only within himself can the individual become enlightened about himself. That is why the ethical life has this duplexity, in which the individual has himself outside himself within himself. Meanwhile, the exemplary self is an imperfect self, for it is only a prophecy and thus is not the actual self. But it escorts him at all times. Yet the more he actualizes it, the more it vanishes within him, until at last, instead of appearing before him, it is behind him as a faded possibility. This image is like a person's shadow. In the forenoon he casts his shadow before him. At noon it walks around unnoticed beside him. In the afternoon it falls behind him. When the individual has known himself and has chosen himself, he is in the process of actualizing himself. But since he is supposed to do that freely, he must know what it is he wants to actualize. What he wants to actualize is certainly himself, but it is his ideal self, which he cannot acquire anywhere but within himself. If he does not hold firmly to the truth that the individual has the ideal self within himself, all of his aspiring and striving becomes abstract. Both the one who wants to copy another person and the one who wants to copy the normative person become equally effective, although in different ways. When a person considers himself aesthetically, he may make distinctions as follows. He says, I have a talent for painting. This I regard as an accidental trait. But I have a keen wit and a keen mind. This I regard as the essential that cannot be taken away from me without me becoming someone else. To that I would answer, this whole distinction is an illusion, for if you do not take on the keen mind and the keen wit ethically as a task, as something for which you are responsible, then it does not belong to you essentially, and primarily because as long as you live merely aesthetically, your life is totally inessential. To a certain degree, the person who lives ethically cancels the distinction between the accidental and the essential, for he takes responsibility for all of himself as equally essential, but it comes back again, for after he has done that, he makes distinction, but in such a manner that he takes an essential responsibility for excluding what he excludes as accidental. Insofar as the aesthetic individual with aesthetic earnestness sets the task for his life, it is really the task of becoming absorbed in his own accidental traits, of becoming an individual whose equal in paradoxically and irregularity has never been seen, of becoming a caricature of a human being. The reason we rarely meet such characters in life is that we rarely meet people who have a notion of what it means to live. But since many people have a decided penchant for chattering, we encounter on the street, at parties, and in books a great amount of chatter that has the unmistakable stamp of the mania for originality that carried over into life would enrich the world with a host of artificial products, one more ridiculous than the other. Ultimatum. Do not interrupt the flight of your soul. Do not distress what is best in you. Do not enfeeble your spirit with half wishes and half thoughts. Ask yourself and keep on asking until you find the answer. For one may have known something many times, acknowledged it, One may have willed something many times, attempted it, and yet only the deep in emotion, only the heart's indescribable emotion, only that will convince you that what you have acknowledged belongs to you, that no power can take it from you, for only the truth that builds up is truth for you. Father in heaven, teach us to pray rightly, so that our hearts may open up to you in prayer and supplication, and hide no further desire that we know is not acceptable to you, nor any secret fear that you will deny us anything that will truly be for our good, so that the laboring thoughts, the restless minds, the fearful heart may find rest in and through that alone in which and through which it can be found, by always joyfully thinking you, as we gladly confess that in relation to you we are always in the wrong. Amen. Only man is wrong. To him alone is reserved what is denied to everything else, to be wrong in relation to God. A human being is a frail creature. It says it would be unreasonable of God to require the impossible of him. One does what one can, and if one is ever somewhat negligent, God will never forget that we are weak and imperfect creatures. Shall I admire more the sublime concepts of the nature of the Godhead than this ingenuity makes manifest, or the profound insight into the human heart, the probing consciousness that scrutinizes itself and now comes to the easy, cozy conclusion. One does what one can. Was it such an easy matter for you, my listener, to determine how much that is what one can? Were you never in such danger that you almost desperately exerted yourself, and yet so infinitely wished to be able to do more, and perhaps someone else looked at you with a skeptical and imploring look, whether it was not possible that you could do more? Or were you never anxious about yourself, so anxious that it seemed to you as if there were no sin so black, so selfishness, so loathsome, that could not infiltrate you like a foreign power, gain control of you? Did you not sense this anxiety? For if you did not sense it, then do not open your mouth to answer, for then you cannot reply to what is being asked. But if you did sense it, then, my listener, I ask you, did you find rest in those words, one does what one can? If a person is sometimes in the right, sometimes in the wrong, to some degree in the right, to some degree in the wrong, who then is the one who makes that decision except the person himself? But in the decision, may he not again be to some degree to the right and to some degree in the wrong? Or is he a different person when he judges his act than when he acts? Is doubt to rule then continually to discover new difficulties, and is care to accompany the anguished soul and drum experiences into it? Or would we prefer continually to be in the right in the way irrational creatures are? Then we have only the choice between being nothing in relation to God, or having to begin all over again every moment in eternal torment, yet without being able to begin. For if we are able to decide definitely with regard to the previous moment, and so further and further back, doubt is again set in motion, care again aroused. Let us try to calm it by deliberating on the upbuilding that lies in the thought that in relation to God we are always wrong. Wishing to be in the wrong is an expression of an infinite relationship, and wanting to be in the right, or finding it to be painful to be in the wrong, is an expression of a finite relationship. Hence it is upbuilding always to be in the wrong, because only the infinite builds up. The finite does not. The movement of doubt consisted precisely in this, that one moment he was supposed to be in the right, the next moment in the wrong, to degree in the right, to degree in the wrong, and this was supposed to mark his relationship with God. But such a relationship with God is not relationship, and this was the sustenance of doubt. In his relationship with another person, it certainly was possible that he could be partly in the wrong, partly in the right, to degree in the wrong, to degree in the right, because he himself and every human being is finite, and their relationship is a finite relationship that consists in a more or less. Therefore, as long as doubt would make the infinite relationship finite, and as long as wisdom would fill up the infinite relationship with the finite, just as long he would remain in doubt. Thus, every time doubt wants to trouble him about the particular, tell him that he is suffering too much, or is being tested beyond his power, he forgets the finite in the infinite, that he is always in the wrong. Every time the cares of doubt want to make him sad, he lifts himself above the finite, into the infinite, because this thought, that he is always in the wrong, is the wings upon which he soars over the finite. This is the longing with which he seeks God. This is the love which he finds God.